I'm Edgar Tangram, joined, of course, tonight by Zed Centauri. Tonight promises to be a rare musical treat and, dare I say, a high water mark for civilization.
Okay, here's the deal. I mispronounced Robert Moog's name through this whole video. When you have a very niche interest, like the history of synth, you don't talk to people about that like in person. You read about it, and that's kind of the problem that I encountered here, is that I had never heard Robert Moog's name said. I had only seen it in print, and it's too late. It's too late. I haven't made a video in months. This is just, I just gotta send it. I gotta send it, and we're all gonna get through this together. I apologize to Robert Moog and the world in general. It has not escaped me that I also recently, in a video, butchered a French philosopher's name as well. The thing that baffles me about this is that I looked this up. I'm not an unprofessional, let me rephrase that. I've been doing this a long time. I know to look up names before I say them on camera, and I did. And that information just did not penetrate. It didn't sink in. So if you can, in the comments, go down there and type in, it's actually pronounced Moog. That would be awesome. Maybe if enough people say that, it will penetrate my thick skull. Please enjoy the remainder of this video about Wendy Carlos.
In 2016, Adult Swim aired a comedy short called Live at the Necropolis Lords of Synth, a musical competition between the three fictional synthwave musicians Zangelix, Morgio Zarogar, and Carlo Wendos. The short itself is hilarious, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest you check it out. And here's a fun fact about the show. The three characters are based on real musicians of the 1970s and 80s. Vangelis, Giorgio Moroder, and one of the most significant historical figures and pioneers of synth music, Wendy Carlos. Not only a trailblazer for synth, but electronic music in general.
The very first 8-track machines, we used it for switched-on Bach, tempered synthesizer, right through a good half of Clockwork Orange.
This silly short on Adult Swim was inadvertently my first introduction to Wendy Carlos and the history of the synthesizer. Synth is such a basic component of music now that most of the time we don't even hear it. In modern day, synth is woven seamlessly into nearly every pop song on the radio. But before the Moog, the sounds musicians could incorporate was limited to the instruments they played. Wendy Carlos is most known for her work scoring movies like Tron, A Clockwork Orange, and The Shining. So she was a heavy hitter, and her work was really out there for her time. She pushed the boundaries of what was considered music. Carlos originally started her career under her birth name with her debut album, Switched on Bach, in collaboration with Benjamin Folkman. Switched on Bach reached number 10 on the US Billboard 200 chart and topped the Billboard Classic Albums chart in 1969. In 1986 became the second classical album ever to be certified platinum. In 1979, Wendy Carlos fully transitioned and started releasing music under her real name. And I can only imagine that 1979 was a really difficult time to be an experimental synth musician, because a lot of people had never heard of synth. People questioned whether or not it was even really music, because it was new to them and it was weird and, for some people, scary. Synth had plenty of critics. They saw the synthesizer as soulless, inauthentic, and not real music. And Carlos faced the brunt of this criticism. In the October 2020 issue of Harper's Magazine, Will Stevenson wrote of her critics, "To review the literature on Carlos is to be exposed to a vast capacity for public cruelty. There is an impulse to constrain the poor treatment to some vanquished past in which bigotry was the way of things, but recent history hasn't been much kinder. On the radio show This American Life, she was used as a kind of avatar of perversity, of Sodom and Gomorrah. An article in Pitchfork referred to her as a transgendered avant-garde new age synthesizer freak. So she understandably became very reclusive, stopped performing and giving interviews. It's funny because these criticisms seem so ridiculous now. Without these pioneers pushing the boundaries with the Moog, we wouldn't have synth pop, techno, EDM, or even the gritty tones of industrial that defined the early work of people like Trent Reznor, who, by the way, collaborated with Daft Punk on the score for the remake of Tron. Reznor himself hailed Robert Moog as one of his first musical influences. Now think about how many bands have been influenced by the work of Nine Inch Nails, or Daft Punk for that matter, or how many songs of the 80s and 90s are cut, chopped, and re-edited into hip-hop. How the work of Carlos and Moog continues to fractal out through the music industry. It's pretty incredible. It's really important to remember people like Wendy Carlos. It's hard to be a pioneer. It's hard to keep going when people don't believe in you. When everyone around you thinks what you're doing is weird, or that you're not a real musician. And yet, she changed the world forever. Thank you so much for watching this little video about Wendy Carlos. My name is Magdalene Rose, and if you liked this video, please head over to patreon.com and pledge just $1 a month to help keep this channel going. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.